Hey y'all. So the other day I was on Threads, which I'm really typically not on Threads, but I'm learning to kind of realize that there's gems anywhere you go. So this particular day, a lady writes a post that struck me, and I feel like it was a message I was supposed to receive. The first thing that she says is unpopular opinion. Keep that in the back of your mind. She says, I would not have chosen my mom to be my mom again. Let that sink in real quick. And that's not an unpopular opinion, surprisingly. We're in that whole healing therapy era. And the more people I meet and I share my testimony with, the more I realize that that is not unpopular. Most of us um, did not choose the bloodline that we came into. We had some work we had to do. And then there are other people who are truly blessed with the opportunity to have what society would call family. Um, I think that this is important, and this is geared towards the people who don't have healthy relationships with the people who came together to create them. But I also feel like this might be something that other people should be a bit mindful of, because a lot of people act like people aren't supposed to have strained relationships or no relationship at all with the people who created them, and that is far from true. There are a lot of people who do not deal with those people at all. So, this is one of my biggest reasons that I say this is because when I was in therapy, my therapist didn't teach me, I was teaching her. And something that I stick with is calling them relatives. So we are related by blood. That is it. That does not mean that you are my mother. That does not mean that you are my father. That does not mean that you are my sister, my brother. I feel like, again, those are terms of endearment. And everybody who comes from your bloodline, it does not mean that they are entitled to those titles. So if you're one of those people who has an issue with that, I would suggest you looking into understanding the difference between family who you choose and who chooses you, and then the relatives and the bloodline, because again, two very different things in my humble opinion, and I had to be able to differentiate those to make sense of the reality of what was happening when dealing with intergenerational bloodline trauma and curses. But I say this to say there are so many of us who can relate to her, who we were not given the best people, but they created us, right? Their mission, which is something that's hard to believe, was their mission was to bring you into this world. She, the person who birthed me, was meant to bring me into this world. And a lot of people, I realize, they get very rude with me, or that's not the right word. They get like defensive with me when I call her that. But they don't realize, like, if they were to ask me questions, I would be a bit more entitled to answer them, or I'd be more open to answering them, I would say, because everybody's not entitled to your business. But I also am one of those people where I know the reality of the situation. I've done the therapy, I've gone through the different variations of familial or bloodline trauma. I've done a lot of healing. I've tried to make amends with these people. I've tried to get them to make amends. And when there are people who just are set up hell bent on making sure that you're the black sheep, that you will not deal with them, you have to ask yourself, like, how much is your peace? Like, how much are you willing to pay the price for your peace? Because you will either pay through it in chaos and not have any, and you will just deal with what is familiar in familial situations or bloodline relative situations, or you will be one of those people who realizes, hey, my piece is extremely important to me, and what I'm going to end up doing is actually I'm going to choose me. And in choosing me, I know that this is as uncomfortable as could possibly be, but I'm going to choose me versus the people who I know are simply just relatives. Like, they aren't trying to be better. They don't want to be better. They don't want to go down this journey of healing. And you have to also realize, like, people choose that. That is a choice. And in their choices, they're deciding, hey, I don't want to do that. And you move accordingly. You have to make sure that, I think that's part of radical acceptance, is radically accepting that some people are not going to change. It does not matter how much you change. It does not matter how much you can give them the resources. You cannot, you can only lead, like they say, a horse to water. You cannot force it to drink, right? And that's the same when it comes to healing. But I think that a lot of people are very judgmental and and they lack mindfulness towards those of us who wanted a healthy bloodline but didn't receive it. And I feel like the cards are always stacked against you when you tell people that, because when people hear my story, and I'm like very like, people think I'm bitter, and that's their opinion of the situation. But if they were to actually understand the scenario up close and personal with the amount of people who have seen it and witnessed what these people have done to me, they will realize how much I am totally at the place where I don't even like have a lot of feelings towards them. Granted, there's grief because it's love that I cannot give to these people, and that are closed-minded on the love that that I have to give to them, and they don't want to be reciprocal and pour into me. So it's totally understandable. But I think that it's almost like this negative connotation towards people who cannot say that they come from a healthy bloodline. And it's almost like the curse is yours, because people are like, well, I mean, you could just tolerate it. Well, you tolerate it. Like, you deal with it. If you realize who those people were, you would understand that so many people told me to flee them. And so that's what I do. And so you have to ask yourself, what is the cost of peace? Are you going to continue to save face so that you can make those people feel comfortable despite it being uncomfortable for you? Or are you going to be one of those people who realizes, like, this is just not working for me. I do not fit in this scenario. I'm going to go ahead and remove myself, us black sheeps. And then, that doesn't mean that you will not receive your love. You may receive your love in a mother in love, a father in love. You may receive that in the person that you're with, siblings. You may receive it in a community like I have in Danone. You may receive it in sisterhoods, brotherhoods. Like, you may receive it in so many different ways. But I just want those people who feel like there's nobody there to understand that there are people who understand. We just don't talk about it enough. And I feel like I want to start creating that space for people to understand, because I come from so much trauma from my bloodline that it makes other people sick. Like, I almost can't even, it's like, dang. Like, so for the longest, I was triggered. Now I'm like, oh, I just share my testimony. And it didn't dawn on me that they were as terrible of people as they were until I started sharing my story with other people. Because for the longest, I shut my mouth and I hid behind the realities of what it was. But when other people started to see it, and if you got to like experience it firsthand, like a couple of people who were there with me when I was in the DMV, or you got to even experience it when I was across the country from them. Now I'm internationally, but they all were like, don't deal with them. Like, and I had to learn from myself that they're right. Like, every person who has wholeheartedly loved me has told me, you need to never be around those people. And I was like, but they're my family. That's why I told you I changed it, because words have meaning, right? Yeah, y'all related by blood, but we are not family. I have had strangers love me greater than the people who are my own bloodline. So don't get it twisted. It's they're hard to find, but they are out there. And I just want to encourage people who do not have that in the people who are related by blood. I want you to not feel so inferior. I hope you understand that there are many of us out here, maybe not talking about it, but we can relate to the situation. I love y'all. I hope y'all be safe. And I know this message is for somebody, because it was deep on my spirit for the last 30 minutes.